should help you with this week's sketchbook assignment. Obviously, one way to sketch an ellipse is the way that we did it earlier, where you start with a square surface and then you build that ellipse inside that square surface. And so you start, in that case, you're starting with the perspective setup. I'm going to review how you can create perspective by starting with an ellipse. And so I'm going to say I want a camera that's facing, let's just do a surface real quick. So I'm going to draw in first a minor axis. And that minor axis is going towards the right vanishing point. And then I'm going to sketch in an ellipse. So that right vanishing point gave me the angle. I'm thinking about how that minor axis is splitting my object in half. And it also basically establishes, not necessarily the convergence, but it can also establish my perspective. So a way to do this for a surface that's facing left or right is you're going to need to use a vertical. So I need to drop in a vertical that's going through the center of that ellipse. And how many of you remember, how can I now establish the left vanishing point? I do a chord. Another way to think about it is I can draw a line that hits that ellipse tangent down at the bottom. Or I can draw a chord. Now what you'll notice, if we really kind of break this down in a more advanced level, if I do that up here at the top, I don't have any convergence. So I've got to cheat a little bit. I've got to add some convergence a little bit. But basically that's the way that you can establish perspective by starting with an ellipse. Let's do one more over here. Let's draw a little bit flatter line. Sketch let's say a much thinner ellipse. And so I started with the minor axis. The minor axis is going towards the left vanishing point. This one's facing the other way. I can find the center of this object, which it's probably about right there. I can drop in a vertical. And notice how different this is. So what does it tell me? Basically, if I was to set a drawing up like this, I'm saying it's way below the horizon line. Both of my angles are fairly steep. But this gives me my right vanishing point, and I can build that perspective grid off of it. So go ahead and just finish a square surface around both of those ellipses. Which means we're just dropping in verticals to the outside. And so to kind of finish today's series of exercises, I want to start a camera drawing. I'm just going to start it. I want you to finish it. I'm just going to start this camera drawing by starting with an ellipse and establishing first my right vanishing point at the bottom of this page. I want my camera lens about somewhere out here. So I'm going to sketch a fairly thin ellipse. So before I say anything, before I establish that left vanishing point, see if you can visualize where does this ellipse exist if we're talking about in relative to the horizon and the horizon line. It's below the horizon line, but where is it relative to the vertical horizon? To the left, yeah. And so what we'll see is very quickly it's going to establish a fairly steep line going towards the left vanishing point. If I put that chord in there, let me draw it wrong a couple of times. Is that right? No. You can see that that chord isn't making the right pie pieces down there. Is this right? No, it's not making the right pie pieces. So I'm basically looking for the line that helps me establish the right pie pieces. That feels pretty good. And so again, if we go back to the relationship of this to the vertical horizon and to the horizon line, this is a steep angle, so it means I'm pretty close to that left vanishing point. And this is not necessarily an extremely shallow angle, but it is fairly far below the horizon line. And so now what I can do is I can begin to build the thickness of maybe a lens for my camera. As I go in this direction, I'm just going to duplicate an ellipse. If anything, it can be a little bit wide. And it's going to meet the body of the camera. I'm using those lines that we've established as the perspective grid. It's going to meet the body of the camera, and that's going to be a little bit larger. Verticals are still vertical. I do want to think about convergence. It's going to be converging quicker in which direction? Towards which vanishing point? Yes. So this is converging slower. These should be converging quicker. And from there you can build in the details. To me, it may be even a little bit easier as you guys work on these cameras to do it this way, because it actually gives you the right proportion for a square surface. Actually, you guys don't need to finish that camera drawing. That's just how to set it up. You can just do it as a part of your homework. You know what? Let's go ahead and just keep it very simple surface, very simple form, and let's hatch this in. So I'm going to make this surface a little bit lighter over here. And then with this cylinder, I'm going to start real tight lines. and then just let it fade as it rolls around. I can do the same thing in here. And that will be IC7.